Hello and welcome to another episode of Solving Linear Equations. But today we're going to be looking at how do you solve a linear equation when you have variables on both sides. Now this video is for someone who've never solved a linear equation and you have variables on the left and a variable on the right. So these are my 3 easy steps on how to solve that. Now, how do you know you have variables on both sides? If we look at our problem here, notice I have 11x on the left and a 6x on the right. Usually when you have variables on both sides, you usually have a variable, then an integer, your equal sign, variable, and then an integer. Now, when that occurs, your first step is to eliminate the variable on the right. I like to do that because you're going to see what happens. So the variable on the right, and I'm going to draw this arrow, is my 6x. And I have to eliminate it. So I'm going to do the opposite. So this is a positive 6x. The opposite would be minus 6x. So I'm going to do that here on the right. And then on the left, I'm going to put minus 6x on the 11 under the 11x because they're related. They both belong to the family of x's. So you have to put like terms with like terms. I'm going to draw my line. Now remember I said eliminate the variable on the right. This is eliminated. Once you have a positive and a negative, you would subtract. 6x minus 6x is 0. They're eliminated. So over here, remember on the right, when your signs are different, you subtract. So this would give me 5x. Keep the sign of the larger, so it will be a positive 5x. I'm going to bring down my plus 5 equals, and then I'm going to bring down my 45. Now because there's a plus sign in front of the 45, I do not need to write it. So you do not need to indicate that plus sign. If you don't see a sign, you know it's positive. Notice here my second step, my second equation, now becomes a two-step equation. And you should be familiar with solving a two-step because I did a video on how to solve two steps. So remember when you're solving a two-step, I usually put a box around my variable, who I'm solving for. And that box lets me know I can't get rid of this 5 first. So this 5 will be the first to be eliminated. And to eliminate, we do the opposite. So because this is a plus 5, I'm going to do minus 5 on the left. And then I'm going to go to the right and I'm going to put a minus 5 under the 45. I'm going to draw my line. This is eliminated. I'm going to bring down my 5x equals. When the signs are different, I subtract, which is 40, and keep the sign of the larger number. So it's a positive 40. Now the 5 and the x are married by multiplication. So to divorce them, we need to do the opposite. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 5. The 5's cancel. The x is all by itself. It's been divorced. And then over here on the right, 40 divided by 5 is 8. So notice when you're solving a linear equation and you have variables on both sides, once you eliminate the variable on the right, you're back to a two-step equation. And you know how to solve a two-step. And you should be fine. Again, if you need to check your answer, we're just going to do a little bit of plug and chug. 11x plus 5 equals 6x plus 45. Wherever I see x, I replace it by its numerical value, which is 8. I'm going to chug using order of operations. So multiplication is first. So this is 88 plus 5 equals 48 plus 45. When I do the arithmetic here on the left, 88 plus 5 is 93. And if I add 48 and 45, I get 93. The left is equivalent to the right, so I know that my answer is correct. If you have time on the test, you can go back and check your answers. And this is good for my college students because your test is going to be 2 hours and you should be able to go back after you finish and check your equation. Okay, let's try some problems. So again, I have minus 5x take away 1 equals 8x minus 27. Remember, we eliminate the variable on the right. This is a positive 8x. I do the opposite where I minus 8x on both sides. This is eliminated where I have my arrow. When the signs are the same, I add, which will give me 13x and keep the sign of the larger. I'm now going to bring down the subtract 1 equals, and notice here I have a subtraction sign. I'm going to bring that with my 27, minus 27. Remember, when I put my box around my variable, that is my clue that I can't get rid of the negative 13 first. I will get rid of the 1. It says minus 1. The opposite would be to add 1 to both sides. This is eliminated. I'm going to bring down my negative 13x equals, when the signs are different, I subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So that's negative 26. Again, the negative 13 and the x are married by multiplication. So we're going to divorce them by division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 13. That cancels. I get x equals 2 negatives gives a positive, and 26 divided by 13 is 2. Here's another example. Notice I'm given a lot of negatives here. Negative 3x plus 5 equals negative 6x plus 2. Again, we eliminate the variable that is on the right. Notice I put an arrow to help me out. That's negative 6x. The opposite would be positive 6x. And notice I'm putting that under the 3x. That's eliminated. When the signs are different, I subtract, keep the sign of the larger, so that's a positive 3x plus 5 equals to 2. I'm not going to write the plus sign. Again, I put a box, which means I need to get rid of the 5 first. It's positive 5. I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. That's eliminated. I'm going to bring down my 3x equals, when the signs are different, I subtract, keep the sign of the larger, so it's negative 3. Remember, the 3 and the x are married by multiplication. So to divorce them, you're going to use division. We're going to divide both sides by 3. The 3's cancel on the left, leaving you with x equals a negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So my answer, x equals negative 1. Okay, last two examples. So here I have 3x plus 5 equals 7x minus 9. So I'm going to get rid of the 7x first. It is positive. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract 7x on both sides. Notice I'm putting like terms on the like terms. That's eliminated. When the signs are different, you subtract, keep the sign of the larger. So that's negative 4x plus 5 equals, and I'm going to bring down the negative 9. Remember, I put my box around my variable, and that gives me a clue who should be eliminated next. It should be the 5. That's plus. I'm going to do minus 5 on both sides. That's eliminated. I'm going to bring down my negative 4x equals, when the signs are the same, I'm going to add. This is going to give me 14. Keep the sign of the larger. Remember, the negative 4 and the x are married by multiplication. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. That cancels. I get x equals, 2 negatives gives me a positive. And can 4 divide 14 evenly? The answer is no. So I'm left with 14 over 4. Now remember, when they can't be divided evenly, you have a fraction. And what do we do with fractions? Yup, we reduce them. So your answer can be a fraction. So anytime your denominator cannot divide your numerator evenly, you have a fraction, just go ahead and reduce it. Both of these can be divided by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So your answer is x equals 7 over 2. You can get a fraction as an answer. Just reduce it to lowest terms if it can be reduced. A lot of times students think their answers must always be whole numbers. That is not the case. You can get a fraction. You can also get decimals. If you get a decimal, sometimes I find these are on the calculator section. So we're going to use our calculator to do our arithmetic for us. So who do we eliminate first? It's the 5.5x. So since it's positive, I will do the opposite. I would subtract negative 5.5x on both sides. Okay, that's eliminated. Now I'm going to use my calculator. Now, in your calculator, you can't put the x. We're just putting the coefficients. So I'm going to put 2, take away 5.5. And that gives me negative 3.5. So here I'm going to put negative 3.5x. Bring down my positive 2.5 equals, and bring down the negative 14.3. I'm going to put my box. That clues me in to get rid of the 2.5. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract 2.5 from both sides. So that's eliminated. I'm going to bring down the negative 3.5x equals, and in my calculator, I'm going to put the minus 14.3 take away the minus 2.5. So I have negative 14.3 take away 2.5, and I get negative 16.8. So that's a negative 16.8. And you could have done this part by hand because it's already lined up for you. I don't even know why I used the calculator. And then here, your last step, you would divide both sides by negative 3.5. That cancels. You get x equals. I'm going to pull out my calculator again. All I'm going to do is press divide, and notice it wrote answer, which is this. And I'm going to divide by negative 3.5. And my answer is 4.8. 4.8. So if you have a decimal, basically you're just using the calculator to do the computation. I subtracted here first. I did 2 minus 5.5, which gives me the negative 3.5. On the right hand side, I did the computation where I did a negative 14.3, take away 2.5, which gave me the negative 16.8. And then my final step was just to hit the divide button and divide by negative 3.5. And I got my answer of 4.8. And that's your answer. So whenever you're solving a linear equation with variables on both sides, remember, get rid of the variable on the right first, and then that will create a two-step equation which you are familiar with, and just solve for your variable. I hope this has been helpful. Good luck on your examination.